Welcome to Selective Imagery. Welcome to a visit to Fort Moultrie. Hello everyone, this is Jeff Neville for Selective Imagery, and for this video it's going to be different than my usual bird videos from Huntington Beach State Park or Brook Green Gardens and other places. Things have been kind of slow, so I'm one that takes pictures of pretty much anything. So my friend Bob Reppert from BobRFotos, check out his YouTube channel, you'll enjoy it very much. We decided to go on a little trip to visit Fort Moultrie, which is in the Charleston area, South Carolina. And Fort Moultrie, it's on Sullivans Island. It's a Charleston Island county town. It's 2.5 miles long. It has about 2,000 residents on it. And it was settled in the late 17th century by Captain Florence O'Sullivan while he was stationed as a lookout. Now, Fort Moultrie is one of 2 forts that stand at the entrance to Charleston Harbor. The other one, which you can only get to by boat, is Fort Sumter. So if you want to get more information about these historic sites, look up Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie National Historic Park, and you'll get all the information that you need on these parks. Now, Fort Moultrie, it's basically a series of small fortifications that run along, ammunition bunkers that run along the coast of Sullivans Island. The primary building is called Station 12, which is on the mainland. It was the first fort built on the island. And as I said, the other sea fortification was Fort Sumter. And so you could basically shoot your cannons across the water from both sides, so you have any ships trying to get into Charleston, they would have a hard time making it through. Now, the Royal Navy attacked in June 28th of 1776 and tried to get into the harbor. They were forced to leave. They weren't able to make it through. Now, in May of 1780, the British captured Charleston and the fort, and eventually, as the war went on, the Revolutionary War went on, they did end up evacuating in December of 1782, which was when the war was basically in its last year of fighting, and they left the area and abandoned the fort. Now, after the Revolutionary War, the fort, people just ignored it. It got neglected, it got worn out, and it was basically, by 1791, there wasn't much of it left. Now, a second Fort Moultrie was built and completed in 1798, and the reason they even rebuilt it, it kind of got driven by the war between Britain and France in 1793. Now, this second fort, once again, was also neglected and destroyed by a hurricane in 1804. So a third Fort Moultrie was built in 1809. In 1860, obviously, South Carolina seceded from the Union. The federal garrison left Fort Moultrie and they went over to Fort Sumter, which had more armaments there. Now, the Confederates shelled the heck out of that fort and destroyed it. And of course, that was all during the Civil War activity. Now, by 1865, Fort Sumter was just a pile of rubble. But Fort Moultrie, it has a lot of sand going over the bunker areas, and the sand would absorb a lot of the impact from any shelling that it got. So it held up relatively well. And it got modernized. Fort Moultrie got modernized in the 1870s. Now in 1885, President Grover Cleveland had the Secretary of War review the coastal defenses in the Charleston area, and the fort got modernized again. So if you go there to visit, it's really interesting. You get to see, to go into the fort, go into where they stored the munitions in the bunker areas. You see various types of cannons, and then you see upgraded armaments, from the Spanish-American War era. And, I'm not a big historian per se. Well, I'm big, but I'm not a historian. Let's leave it at that. But, Bob and I had a really good time. It was a good day. I don't know if the boats were running to go over to the other fort or not, but, we had, kind of had a time restriction. So we just focused on Fort Moultrie. So I'm going to share some still images with you, do a little bit of narration, and I know what you're thinking. Gee, Jeff, you said you weren't going to slow down on these videos, but basically if I have content, I'll share it. When I don't have content, I'm not going to go crazy to try to create it, but if I have it, I'll create it, I'll share it. So I hope you enjoy it, and let's go and move on. Well, we start off with the building the visitor center that you enter. It has a small museum in there. You pay $10 a piece to go in there and look around and go on the grounds. And then this is the entrance that we found to go into the fort area. And this shot is of my friend Bob from BobRFotos. I have him walking ahead of me and got him going through the part of the building. And then there are, doorways and hallways off of that. And this particular doorway had some munition equipment. You had the ramrods that you use, for the cannons. There was an old desk with a map of Charleston Harbor. So you can see you have some. This was an elevated area that you come to. There's staircases. There's a lot of sand. Last time they rebuilt the area, is where you had the brick walls came into play. You couldn't get into any of the doors from this observation area. It has a searchlight up on the kind of in line with the stairs here in the right-hand corner, and so I didn't bother walking up the stairs. Bob and I don't have great knees, so here's some of the batteries. And not all the battery areas had guns mounted on them, but they were interesting. And I really like this church that was off the campus here. Shows up in a lot of the pictures. And then here's one of the placards with some information. You can stop on this and read a little bit more information about the particular guns. But I had a good time going through and looking at this, and it was really interesting. Now, I like to walk inside more, which was very narrow, you know, fair amount of steps, not horribly. And this is after I popped out. I turned around and got a picture. And my friend Bob started yelling, "Jeff, Jeff." So I run out and I get to this area, back to this area. And eventually we get a visitor. And when he was yelling, "Jeff, Jeff," it was because this eagle basically flew right over his head. And if he said if he had a cane, he could have poked its belly with it. That's how close it got to him. And it showed up later on and went on some of these structures here, and we got a few shots of them. And then this was shooting across the campus at some of the other buildings. And more guns. If you like guns, man, this is the place to be. You like armaments, cannons. But it is real neat, I mean, to see it. And this is a view across the water to Fort Sumter. And like I said, you have to get a tour boat to go over there, just visit that. I like the shot with the flag and the church in the background. Some more guns. It's a fair amount of walking going through here, but you know, you could just see all the mounds, the dirt mounds. There's, you know, sand, a lot of sand underneath to absorb the shelling from any ships that we're trying to pass through. And some more signage for you to read. Definitely cool stuff. And these look like, you know, they got the wheels in the back. You can move the cannons around. And this was just some cannonballs that were laying there. And it looked like, you know, they would just pick them up off the ground and then roll them across those tracks. So they didn't have to lift them the whole way. It was a decent day. I think when we left it was like 47 degrees Fahrenheit. And by the time we got there it was in the low 50s. So it was reasonably comfortable. At least we don't have to deal with snow. And here's another placard. Now Bob would stay up top, and he's gotten into vintage 8mm film projectors. So he was on the top doing a lot of filming. I would explore some of the areas, and a lot of the bunker areas, you know, it would just lead you to an empty room. You know, they'd have a light hanging from the ceiling to light it up, but it was just some place where they would store munitions. And I went and I checked out as many of them as I could. And here's a series of cannons at the ground level. The one to the far left is like really, really large diameter and short. I would hate to see what came out of that sucker. But it was just a real interesting area to be in, and very easy to get to. And then finishing up with just a few pictures walking along the water line. And you can see the the bridge leading into Charleston in the background. And overall, it was a great day. And just for information, for those who want to know, I mean, I shot with my Z9 with my 24-120 f4 with a circular polarizer on it, and I shot everything fully manual mode to try that out for a change, because that isn't something that I do very often anymore. And I said, what the heck, you know, I'll try it. And it was interesting. I mean, certainly not the way I would shoot when I'm doing birds in flight by any means, but for this type of shooting, yeah, why not? So, hey, if you like this, give me a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and remember, enjoy life, capture some of it, get out there and get some great images, and share what you see with the world. That's what it's all about. Take care, everyone.